Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate. We have an exciting match for you today. We got Richard Schwartz is going up against Alex Martinez. Both haven't played in a hot second, but they're both back looking for a win to add to their record. I'm excited about this one. Let's start by talking to the judges. Brian, welcome to the judges circle. How are you doing tonight, sir? And what do you think of this matchup?
I'm doing good. I'm kind of glad to be back on this side of the debate for a little while, kind of take a break from debating and go back to judging other people, which is always fun, just laying judgment on people in general, much less in debate. This will be a good one, I think. I think that they're two pretty evenly matched. I think these are two guys who a lot of their knowledge, I think, is in fandom, so it'll be interesting to see that they're pretty well balanced.
Yeah, and Mark Menchaca is here. How are you, and what do you think about the match?
I'm doing all right. A little tired, but I think we got an interesting one. I think we got a couple people, honestly, we haven't seen in a little while. I'm kind of curious to see the guy out their sleeve with some time off.
Yeah, both of them are at a negative record now, but if either of them win, they will be at an even record. So we'll see what happens. We will talk to the players real quick before getting into the match. We'll start by talking to Mr. Alex Martinez. Alex, how are you tonight? You said it's been a while for you, but I think when you debated last year, you had a lot of really good debates. Your record's 1 and 2, but I think in all of your performances, you had some really good, you brought interesting points to the arguments that I didn't expect. I didn't see coming. That's something really good to have up your sleeve. So how are you feeling about the match today?
Oh, I'm great. I got a bit of a bruised rib, so we're going to try and work through that. Yeah, I think my main problem with debate is that I think sometimes the points that I make are unpopular. Not that they're not bad points, but they're unpopular points. And I think the major problem that I have is that other people make better points. And that's really what we're going to try and get past today if we can.
That's fair. That is what you will need to do. Or at least convince us that that you have better points. But we'll bring in Mr. Richard Schwartz. Richard, welcome back to the debate arena.
Hello.
In your last match, we saw you go up against Joe Fairley in a very exciting match. Joe went on to make it to the semifinals of the tournament, so I think no reason to hang your head about that one. But now you're back and you're taking on Alex, trying to get to that even record. How are you feeling, man?
I'm excited. I mean, I like Alex. He's a good dude. My biggest problem, my weakness is I talk fast, and as I talk fast, I lose track of what I want to say, and I keep repeating over and over again. It's probably going to happen again today, but I'm going to try to speak lower and get concise. Oh, wow. That's already a great start. I'm going to try to get clear responses and listen more. And regardless of what happens, it should be a fun match, and good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, this is how the match is going to work. So there are 4 prep questions based off of categories that the players drafted. They're going to debate those tonight before our very souls. They're each going to get a 1-minute opening. Then there will be a 5-minute freeform debate, followed by a 1-minute closing for each player. At the end of the debate, Brian, Mark, and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won the debate. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. Any questions from the players?
Nope.
Awesome. Then let's kick this thing off. All right. So we're going to kick this off with the first category, which was drafted by Richard in the category of the MCU. Your question is, which MCU film has the best action scenes? Richard, you drafted this, so you get to go first in your opening. You are going to get 1 minute to open your argument. I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes.
There is when it comes to MCU, there is a lot of great movies that have great action scenes, but I think by far the best MCU action scenes comes from Captain America: Civil War. We have multiple iconic and just fantastic, well done action scenes that really well done, look really well, and with the ensemble cast of this movie, it works so very well. And I can list a few in my opening. I'm not going to, because that's for the opening debate, but I'll give you just, the more important, the more memorable scene was the airport scene. And I will go on to list why this has the best action scenes in a movie in the arguments. I conclude the rest of my time.
Okay. We will bring in Alex. Alex, you now have 1 minute when you start talking.
Guys, I'm getting real old. The MCU has been going since I was a little kid. I grew up watching them, so it actually takes a lot for the newer releases to impress me. And it takes even more for the kind of older releases to keep impressing me, to kind of keep that marvel going. The MCU has a lot of cool action scenes, but a lot of them kind of are the same action scene, more or less. Some of the action scenes do nothing for the story. Some of the story does nothing for the action scenes. I want a movie that has action scenes to inform the action, and I want the action to inform the story. To that point, I think all around, the best action scenes in the MCU come from Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's densely packed with action, but it's kind of action that you can revisit over and over again.
Time. Okay. So we've got Civil War going up against Winter Soldier. Guys, you are now going to get 5 minutes freeform. I will throw up the 1 minute warning when that time comes. If I feel like you're going on a point too long, I'm going to throw up the let's move on. If I feel like you aren't letting your opponent talk, I'm going to throw up the let your opponent talk. Don't make me do that. I will be upset, and I will send Nick Tuig to your house. So you guys get 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Alex, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I don't think people go to Civil War for the action. I think they do it for the conflict. I don't think they, like you said, the airport scene is great, and that's fine, but I don't think they want to see that fight. At least they don't want to see it anymore. I think they want to see Black Panther. I think they want to see Spider-Man. I think they want to see Tony and Steve argue. And that is not really action. I think Winter Soldier has action. I think it has the Crossway scene. It has Nick Fury, the attack on Nick Fury's lives, 2 of them. It has a couple of different other scenes. The Crossway, the knife fighting scene, the rooftop chase. Like, there are scenes in Captain America: The Winter Soldier that just are visually, tactically, and technically more impressive than the things that are in Captain America, Captain America: Civil War.
Well, you talk about the Nick Fury scene. All he did was he just got shut up. There wasn't much of action. When I'm talking about the airport scene, we're talking about action scenes. The Winter Soldier Black Panther chase during that tunnel was amazing choreography. The choreography event through the tunnel, that was a great action scene. Even before then, the Captain America confrontation with Winter Soldier, that scene with the federal agents coming into that building was a great sequence-wise. When you're talking about the Winter Soldier, great movie, one of my favorite movies in the MCU. It's not more about the action, it's more about the plot of the story. Captain America, like a lot of the scenes in Captain America: Winter Soldier, is Captain America kicking a bunch of people. Like, that's really all he does.
And that's kind of what the action is about. I think the thing that you're kind of missing is that there's genuine tension in those moments. When Captain America steps into that elevator and he's surrounded by a growing number of people, you know something's about to go down. He knows something's about to go down. Everyone in the elevator knows something's going to go down. That's why he asks, is anybody that's here not supposed to be here for this? And then from there, like, the fact that they shot in such a close space is actually technically more impressive, because the running through the chase that you mentioned, that's done in a kind of a broad spectrum, most of that stuff is not real. That's a soundstage, just like the airport scene is a soundstage. The hardest part of doing the airport scene is scheduling all the actors to be there with their stunt doubles.
Well, a lot. When you're saying Winter Soldier, a lot of the special effects scenes, a lot of the great action scenes in Winter Soldier was because of Falcon on the carriers, which was CGI. But we were talking about for actions and conflicts. You're saying there wasn't much tension. The airport scene, half the Avengers taking on the other half of the Avengers in the airport scene. That is immense tension. That brings amazing action. When you're saying the fighting sequence between Hawkeye, Black Widow, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man versus Hawkeye, Winter Soldier. And if you're going to the ending of the scene of Civil War, the great fighting sequence between Captain America, Iron Man, and Winter Soldier is one of the greatest looking action sequence of all time, where they even it's one of the things that's very memorable. And when you going to Winter Soldier, sorry, I'm going to let you go a quick second. A lot of it is just, a lot of Captain America kicking. It's more story driven than it is action driven. That makes you, when the action does happen, it's great. But it's more story driven than action.
So I don't think there's a lot of tension for the fights in Civil War. I don't think there's a lot of tension in the airport scene. Hawkeye and Black Widow are joking around, hey, don't punch me too hard, yucky, yucky, yuck. When they get to the finals, and by the way, the airport scene is the big trailer moment, is the two armies colliding, and that's 30-45 minutes before the end of the movie. That this is not going to be the end. Nobody's going to get captured here. There's going to keep going on. I think the thing that really bothers me about the end is the final battle between the two, is that it devolves into Iron Man hand waving. Just like the airport scene where it evolves into Vision.
How so hand waving? Can you explain hand waving?
When he's taking on the two of them, they're punching him. Cap is doing this, how people fight. And Iron Man evolves into just boom, boom, boom. They have to slow-mo it down to actually get more out of it, so that Black Panther can end his storyline. They're trying to slow it down so they can keep it going. They've run out of action scenes. I think that Winter Soldier doesn't have that problem. They just keep throwing more and more action scenes. Cap holding the helicopter. That's iconic. That's as much iconic as
they hold the helicopter in Civil War too.
As anything in Civil War, it's just a more layered approach to action movies.
Time. Okay. We're gonna start with Alex closing. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
The elevator scene, Nick Fury fighting off his assassins, the crossway fight, the chase through the apartment building onto the rooftops, the shootout at the helicarrier base after Steve's speech, Captain America holding onto the helicopter with his bare hands. These are all weighted, relatively realistic and story-focused action scenes that are well set up, well choreographed, and very well executed. They're the things you remember. The knife flip that Bucky does, Steve getting yeeted by the grenade launcher, the minigun tearing up the bus. These are all things that you could genuinely imagine happening. It's not just CGI backgrounds and guys waving hands at each other. It's the real deal. There would be consequences if any of these blows landed. In Civil War, a guy falls out of the sky and doesn't die. That's just not the kind of thing that really would happen in Winter Soldier, and I think Civil War suffers because of it.
Time. Okay. We're going to go over to Richard. Richard, you now have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
His main argument was the helicopter scene, which was not in Winter Soldier. It was in Civil War, which I just realized. And Winter Soldier is fantastic, but it's more story driven than it is action driven because of the events of Captain America, the First Avenger. Civil War has such fantastic choreographed fighting sequence when it comes to the chase between Black Panther, Captain America, and Winter Soldier in the beginning, the airport scene, which is one of the most talked about fight sequence of all the MCU, and the ending fighting sequence between Captain America, Iron Man, and Winter Soldier. Fantastic sequence. And he's talking about the chase sequence. Again, he didn't really mention that in his argument. It was fine. It was just car driven. It wasn't as exciting as seeing tension. Civil War, Avengers versus Avengers. And it's just the action sequence made the movie, whereas I feel like the story of Winter Soldier is just what made that movie. Done.
Yeah, you are, because I'm cutting you off. All right.
That was fun, Alex. Good job.
Yeah, good times.
How you doing?
This not good. Not good.
We're allowed to be cordial while we're doing this, you know.
Yeah.
All right. What'd you do to your ribs?
A jujitsu.
Oh, nice.
All
right.
That on me.
I'm gonna go first. I went with Richard. This is one of those cases where I actually agree with Alex on the pick. I think Winter Soldier is the best action in the MCU. That being said, there were a couple of things he left on the table. I wanted to look past the fact that he was mixing up the movies, but it's kind of hard to that he like specifically a scene from his opponent's movie. If it was like something from like Endgame that he mixed up, like, okay, he mixed up that one thing. Everything else he said was great, but he specifically was pointing out a thing from Civil
There
War.
was no helicopter movie in Winter Soldier. Sorry, Alex.
Hey, you had your time. Shush. But I did think that Richard, though, like the whole like story driven versus like action driven thing, that did not work for me at all. I think Richard did do a good job breaking down the airport fight. I agree. I love the fight at the end with Tony and Steve and Bucky, and I thought he did a really good job of breaking that scene down and why it's really good in the movie. And I thought he did a good job talking about the chase scene with Black Panther and everything. That was another good point. So it was close, but I think the couple hits that Alex kind of gave himself swayed me in Richard's favor. So Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I do agree that this is a close one. Like it's, I think was a little weird. Like we had mentioned, we wanted to, like Alex mentioned, like he wanted a movie that had action that told the story, and then Richard kind of went in there like, well, like it's too story driven. Like got a little bit in mix in the weeds there. I think even though like kind of like Alex kind of leaned into some punches there by kind of mixing the movie, I he still went with Alex. I think overall in the argument, I think I got a better idea of a more plethora of action scenes for at least for Alex's film. It felt like a lot of time like Richard was kind of glomming onto some just select scenes in Civil War, and just mainly just kind of like I felt like Alex was arguing a bit more the question, even though he did kind of leave himself open for some punches there. So like small edge, I just went with Alex on that one.
Yeah, that's fair. Brian, you're deciding this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them did a great job of listing off the action sequences that theirs have, make a good case for, the quantity and what they have. But as far as who actually sold me the scenes better and told me why they were better, I went for Alex.
Okay.
Good job, Alex.
All right, so Alex wins the first point. We are going to move on to the second question. This was in the category of Oscars. Your question is, which 1930s Best Picture winner should be remade? So, Alex, you're kicking this one off. You have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
The Oscars, the land of what won that year? I like the 30s more so than most of the other classic decades. It's pretty varied, spread out, good list of movies. The question is, which one deserves a redo? And when I consider something for a remake, I want something that was all right, that was good, but that still had room to grow, that still had like meat on the bone. And I want something that, for our purpose, would actually be made today. Something vibrant, something alive, something big, something for something like really meaty for actors, a bunch of actors, something that feels alive. People come, people go, but I think we should absolutely remake Grand Hotel. It's a movie about a big kind of class of characters kind of coming together. I think that was really real today.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Richard. Richard, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Everything in the sentiments that Alex said was absolutely true. I want something that could be story, be able to be remade today. So I went with 1938's You Can't Take It With You. It is about a banker named Anthony Kirby. His son eventually Anthony Kirby wants to buy out this property so he can build a factory. And this one family will not sell their house. Anthony's son, Tony, falls in love with the daughter whose family refuses to sell. And, it's the story back and forth of, the two opposite sides falling together, falling in love. And I feel like that is an endless classic when it comes to storytelling. It could absolutely, in the 1930s, it can still be relatable today. And with all the new recent technology and adaptation today, it will still work as a great story. And I just think this movie will be perfectly adapted to modern day. The end.
Time. Well, I hope not the end. You guys got 5 more minutes.
You know I like to concede.
5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
Look, the problem with yours is it's stuck in one crucial location. And depending on where you want to do modern day, when your story evolves around a previous world war, which, like World War One, I don't know how you're going to, like, the mentality of your movies today would not probably fit as well as it was my movie.
So that's actually really funny. Because I think wars are happening all the time. So the idea that like just because there isn't a war doesn't mean, that's fine. But I think actually You Can't Take It With You doesn't age well into right now. Like I said, I want something that would be remade today. And I think that if you made it right now, it would be a little bit Hallmarky. It would play a little better in like 2000s or like a mumblecore like 2010s kind of situation, but it comes off as very preachy in my opinion. Like Eat the Rich or Hey, who cares about money is like not a thing that we're like super in tap with right now. Whereas I think Grand Hotel in like the character, like the multiple actor character piece, the ensemble character piece is super popular right now.
Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story, opposite sides coming to attract, that has been an endless time story that is still happening to this day. Like, I don't see how you could say why mine would be Hallmark preachy. By the way, the Hallmark channel does very well in this generation. There's plenty of people who watches those type of movies. But anyway, your movie, when it comes to a thief, the victim who apologizes to the thief, eventually steals, forgiving her, that may not happen in this modern day because people are prone to take advantage of things that happen in their lifetime. Loves and opposite things are still happening to this day. And if you're talking about the story, like the banks are still, taking control, trying to sell property to this day. It's still more of my movie is more of that's realistically happening than yours is. Even if you're talking about not even talking about the current war, like any war in the general, the mentality.
I think the mentality is kind of why You Can't Take It With You doesn't work. We don't really have a Frank Capra right now. We don't have anyone that would take that kind of like what in the 30s was sentimentality, which would now be seen as kind of like passe. I think Grand Hotel is a little bit more modern. It was ahead of its time, and I think now would play as very modern. When I think of like the ensemble character pieces, which is what I'm kind of trying to pitch, I'm thinking of things like the Knives Out movies, the great.
So you're saying that no bankers would ever try to take people out of their homes so they could build a factory. Could not happen to this day.
I'm saying that there's already 600 movies about bankers kicking people
There's
out
already
of their
600 movies
homes.
about your film too.
There's Grand Hotel about my movie. Then that's really it. I don't think that you can't take it with you is a bad idea. I think it worked back then. Well, I think Grand Hotel.
You're isolating yourself to one basically simple location, which has done with the Grand Hotel, the Grand Budapest Hotel. Anything that revolves around a hotel, it's been done to death.
Grand Budapest
Whereas my
Hotel
movie,
won a bunch of awards.
it is a timeless classic. Romeo and Juliet, Sharks versus Jets. It's been going on throughout the whole generation. It can still work today.
Can you name a movie from recently? Because
What?
it's like presumably we're remaking them right now. So like I want something that's gonna happen right now, and I mean you could do it, but I don't. I think it would play very heavy-handed because we don't have a Frank Capra. I think you would be very stressed to find an actor as
there are plenty of actors who can reform the world.
As
there
Lionel
are plenty of
Barrymore.
actors that can do this role perfectly. You're bringing up actors that are it's a timeless classic. Like you're bringing up points that really makes no sense. You're in which war would you basically be saying this in? Give me an example of a war. Any war, no, especially with the mentality of today's situation. How would a victim forgive a thief in this generation? How would that work? How would that be realistic?
You could make any veteran of any war work in context. You could set it back then. You could set it now. It really wouldn't
tell me
matter
how my story would not work better to this generation than yours.
Richard, let him talk.
Sorry.
Like I was saying, that would not necessarily be a huge problem because I think veterans were post World War I were always super disillusioned coming back home, and I think playing those characters, playing those archetypes, dancer, baron, common man, like those are archetypes. You said Romeo and Juliet will always work. Common archetypes will always work, and I think mine's just a more interesting setup, a more modern setup, the kind of setup that if you did it, it would play better. Like I brought up the Knives Out movies, and that's kind of what I want. There's like that big, giant, like twisted pretzel of a movie.
Time. Okay. Richard, you are going to get to close first. You have 1 minute.
Look, my opponent's movie is fine, but it does not work with today's generation. The character's motivation during the time in the 1930s will not work in today's society. Audiences will not believe the mentality. This time and age, people will take advantage of other people. No one's going to forgive thieves in this tiny age, whereas my story is a timeless, endless classic of Juliet. People on opposite sides coming together to fall in love, to overcome both families' aggressions. And it's just his story is just set in one typical location, whereas mine can take place anywhere in the world. It is timeless. It can be in any country, any state. Whereas his movie, when it was in Berlin in Germany, it can only take place in really one central location or one simple timeline that maybe not everyone can relate. Everyone can relate to my story, not his. I'm done.
Now, yes, you are. Okay, Alex, you get 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Grand Hotel is exactly the kind of movie that would be made today. You could have a big, flashy cast, like Knives Out or like Oppenheimer. Just grab a bunch of interesting actors and have them play these fleshed out archetypes and watch them bounce off of each other in this great, big chemical reaction. Yes, it's set in one location. That's the best part. They have nowhere else to go. Just let them live around each other. The Baron, the Dancer, the Common Man, all stuck together in this ritzy location. It's a classic setup. It'll work every time. Take It With You is a classic that works in its own time. Yes, people will always take advantage of each other, but sometimes also something good happens. Sometimes something works out, and people will always cheer for that. People will always pop for that. Grand Hotel stays and plays in its concept, and it flourishes from there. Well, I'm afraid that you can't take it with you nowadays would just kind of be seen as redundant.
Time. Okay.
Let me just write down Richard.
First off, Alex, I apologize for taking more time. I did not mean to do that. Apologize.
It happens. I think I've done it once too. I think Tim had to cut me off one time.
It wasn't even the amount of time. It's like you ask him a question, but then wouldn't let him answer it.
Yeah, no. It's my bad. I apologize. That's the main goal.
You're fine.
Yeah.
All right. Brian, I believe you're kicking us off.
Yeah. I did vote for Alex again on this one. I think neither one of them, their attacks on the other person was real effective. I think they did a pretty good job pitching their own. But like saying like Alex saying that Richard's like maybe was only relevant in his own time, but Richard defended that very well, saying that kind of thing happens today. But at the same time, Richard was trying to attack Alex about the one location thing, and Alex did a really good point of like being that's what makes it great. There, because there are plenty of great one location movies, so that really didn't do much for me when you tried to attack that. In the end, voted for Alex.
All right. I thought the attacks on each other's movies were pretty even. Myself personally, I thought that Alex did a good job defending his movie, and I thought that Richard did a good job defending his. So to me, it almost came down to like, what would I rather see? Not having seen either of these, like, what pitch did they give me? Because they kind of set it up that way, where they were like, "This is like what would be made today that would work the best given today's standards in like a modern setting," which is not in the question. Like, you could have remade a movie that could have taken place in the 1930s. Like that wasn't the question, but they both said it, framed the question around that way. So ultimately, I went with Richard again. I thought his whole thing of the timeless love story worked. I thought that Alex's movie looked good too, or sounded good too. But I ultimately went with Richard. So me and Brian just fucking hate each other. Mark, do you hate me too?
It's a weird fucking question to ask.
Yes. No, go ahead.
The answer is yes, but also,
I like that the majority of this argument was, hey, what's more relatable, love or war? And went back and forth a lot on that one. So
that's great.
I do kind of agree with Brian and Tim. I think the attacks on each other were, kind of evened out throughout. So same thing. I am kind of sitting here like who I feel like pitched a more interesting idea. What I think is more likely to, maybe feel like a film that I feel a little bit more rejuvenated, and it did lean Richard. I feel like I feel like I would probably rather watch maybe a love story with maybe a new twist than, hey, let's get a whole bunch of fun actors together in a movie, because it feels like something like we've seen a lot before. Like, it's.
Can I just say before we get on to the next question how hard it was? I could not. I'm unemployed. None of these movies were available for me to stream. It is really freaking hard to do plot. So I'm not the 30s guy. I'm sorry, Alex, but it's just I had to look at the plot synopsis and what I feel like would be the best choice.
That's great. That probably makes Alex feel really good now. Rich.
I'm sorry, Alex.
All right. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the next question, which was drafted
I'm sorry, Alex.
by Richard in the category of comedy. And the question is, or was it actors and actresses? I think it might have been actors and actresses. What is the best Will Ferrell movie? So, Richard, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think what is considered the best Will Ferrell movie is not only his acting, but what he is remembered for. When you see Will Ferrell, what he will be remembered for. And all I see when I see Will Ferrell is, "Good morning, San Diego. I am choosing Ron Burgundy, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy." It is such a funny, clever movie with a great ensemble, great cast, memorable moments, memorable scenes, funny and even serious, where I feel like this is one of the movies that will best articulate what he could do as an actor, a comedian actor, and even a series actor. I can see the rest of my time.
Okay, ending about 20 seconds early. I call that the Andrew Bar. Let's bring in Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Will Ferrell is a comedic genius. Sometimes. Other times, he's just okay. At his best, he's usually working with a close couple of people in a comedic situation. No, I think the situation is more important because the jokes will flow from there. At his best, Will Ferrell plays with a really high level of commitment to the bit. That's what's most important. And I think it's kind of what determines whether or not his movies work. As long as the bit is fresh, the jokes will flow from there. That's the difference between something like Elf and Kicking and Screaming. It's funny because he takes it seriously. And nowhere is that more clear than in Stranger Than Fiction. In Stranger Than Fiction, just like in like the other guys and a bunch of Will Ferrell movies, he actually plays it really, really straight. And that's what's funny. And that, I think, is best exemplified in Stranger Than Fiction.
All right. Stranger Than Fiction versus Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
I will let you go first, Alex.
What is the serious moment in Anchorman? I'm really baffled by this. What is the serious moment in Anchorman?
His relationship with his dog Baxter, his relationship with Christina Applegate's character. Yes, you may think it's a joke, but the love of his character is very serious in a very comedic way. You can feel the love and the friendship that they feel with one another.
No, I think I laughed because you said it's the love he had for his dog, and that made me laugh. I don't think that Will Ferrell is like a bad actor. I think Will Ferrell is actually a really good actor, but I think in comedies he gets kind of pigeonholed sometimes, and I think, and a lot of comedians are like this, by the way. Comedians sometimes do best when they step out of that comedic role. Will Ferrell find like the perfect middle ground, which is it'll be funny, but I'll be serious. I will play it so straight that you will laugh because the situation is ridiculous. I think that's just a better even keel to play. And I think it's done all right in Anchorman, but I think it's done much better in Stranger Than Fiction. I think Anchorman gets away from Will Ferrell because he gets lost in all of the cast. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. We're taking on a romantic comedy versus a comedy. You know, it's really hard to compare the two. Completely different types of movies. I think you can both agree. Like, it's really hard to compare his performances with another. What I will say is, first of all, you said like what was really funny about his love for his dog. A lot of people in today's generation has very much love. They're part of the family. They're like this. For a lot of people, it's like their son. And when Seth Rogen's character kicks the dog up, you can feel the pain and emotion he has inside. Whereas, I feel like his character, Will Ferrell's character, as Ron Burgundy, as into your character, Stranger Than Fiction. By the way, I will never talk bad about Stranger Than Fiction. One of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie. But his character is very one-noted. It's very like him being very passive-aggressive tax auditor. Like, he's very shy, very awkward. That's his gimmick. Whereas you see Ron Burgundy, you see him as a cocky person, but he becomes vulnerable. He becomes serious at times. He becomes funny, like outrageously stupid, like you see in his other companies. There's multiple levels to Ron Burgundy than there is to the character in Stranger Than Fiction.
See, but I think his character in Stranger Than Fiction is, like you called him one note. I don't think that's true at all. I think he's got several layers to him. He thinks he's going insane. He thinks he's, he finds out he must die, apparently. He's falling in love. He's figuring out that his life is a lie. Like there's a lot of layers going on to him, and no one reasonable person could like go through all those emotions in the face at the same time. And so what comes off as blank to some, like, it's panic. It's the kind of thing that, like, in Yes Man, when Jim Carrey and Yes Man, some people like that movie, a lot of people don't. But I think it works better when Will Ferrell's take on that would be, it's maybe not as funny as something like Anchorman would be, but I'm not looking for funniest Will Ferrell movie.
But
I'm looking
Ron
for best
Burgundy's
Will Ferrell
character
movie.
goes through a complete different direction too. He's on top of the world in the beginning of the movie. He finds his love interest, which is like his adversary at the time, so he's conflicting with her. He falls in love with her. He gets betrayed by her. He is in agony because he lost the love of his life and his dog, and he becomes a better person after the fact. Whereas you're saying he falls in love, but he's still that awkward guy in the movie the whole movie. He's accepting. He's the nerdy dude.
You don't necessarily become a whole different person after you fall in love. You're still the same person.
Yes, you do. You completely
If you changed after you fell in love, then the person that fell in love with you, presumably it happened to, will break up with you. And I think that in Stranger Than Fiction, they ride a much better line. I don't think that Ron Burgundy is a worse character or a one-dimensional character. I think that Stranger Than Fiction just finds the line a little bit better.
The difference between Stranger Than Fiction, it's a serious movie. A lot of people think the serious movies are the better movie or the best action movie. That's not necessarily true.
Let Stranger Than Fiction be serious and let Anchorman be funny. I'm not trying to knock Anchorman for being funny, but I think what it loses in trying to be funny is it loses the thread of for the sake of bits, whereas Stranger Than Fiction keeps the bit and adds in all of this wonderful dimension for this.
Anchorman keeps
character.
the bits too, but his over exuberance comedy, when he comes to be over-exaggerated sadness and over-exaggerated becoming a good guy, means a lot more.
We are going to go to Alex to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Anchorman is too big. It's more ensemble than it is Will. Brick, Fantana, everyone in the brawl scene, it just gets away from him. Stranger Than Fiction is about Will Ferrell. It's about his character. It's about his struggle, and it's probably his single strongest performance because of it. It has a better, more fulfilling story that is supported by fantastic performances rather than funny performances that are tied together by a plot. Yes, Anchorman is funny. You will laugh when you watch it, but that's not all that Will Ferrell can offer you, or even all that he is. You can have a Will Ferrell movie that is good for you beyond that escalated quickly memes. You can have Stranger Than Fiction. I'm just going to see the time.
Okay. We're going to go over to Richard. Richard, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Being over the top is not necessarily a bad thing. Yes, he's over the top comedy, but then he becomes over the top depression, over the top betrayal. His over the topness back to each other makes it even a better performance, because Stranger Than Fiction, his character is basically one note. Yes, he does fall in love. Yes, he gets a little bit more confident, but it's not as progressive as an over-the-top company where he realizes, yeah, he's larger than life. Then he finds an adversary. He falls in love with the adversary. The adversary betrays him. He goes into depression and becomes the hero on top. Over-topness can actually be greater because he's having to do it to different levels. Stranger Than Fiction is a great ensemble cast, but the problem is not everyone's going to relate to the ensemble cast. You have to understand, like, if you're not great in English authors, you're not going to understand the story. Everyone can relate to an Anchorman story. Everyone has that feeling. And I feel like the best performance is Anchorman. Right on time.
Oh, man.
By the way, Alex, I hate you for choosing my favorite movie. Just letting you know. Hopefully that doesn't influence anyone, but, I would never talk bad about Stranger Than Fiction. Never talk bad.
All right. I really want to go first, but I hate breaking traditions. So, Mark, go for it.
All right. I just gotta start off. I gotta be honest. This is maybe one of like the wildest debates I think we've had this year. We went a lot of different. We like I thought this was gonna go away, and then it went another way, and like I feel like it's trying to articulate this. I feel like Richard picked the technical best movie, but Alex came in here, I think, put together a really good argument for Stranger Than Fiction, found a way to also tie it into Will Ferrell's strengths the way that I didn't think he would. And then he somehow got Richard to kind of fight on his level, kind of forcing, almost like Richard kind of playing into talking about the dramatic aspects of Anchorman. And I think kind of weirdly enough, it's sort of why I went with Alex, even though I think Anchorman is like my fourth favorite comedy ever. But I'm kind of impressed with like how Alex is able to turn the fight into his favor, like kind of throughout this whole thing.
Brian.
This one was hard for me to judge because most of the entire debate seemed to be arguing what was the best Will Ferrell performance.
And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that's what the question was.
And yeah, he said, "What the best performance is this?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute!" I actually went back to make sure I had the right question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still plenty of talk about the movies in there, but yeah, it wasn't a lot of talk about performances. And even on Alex's side, there was a lot of talk about performances. And he's talking about how in Anchorman, there can be, it's two ensemble and things like that. And it's like that doesn't make it a bad movie either. So I had to take what I could of people talked about what was actually the best movie. And for me, actually, I thought Richard made a few more points as far as like, what happened in his movie and the progress in the character that I think that Alex got touched on it, but maybe it was, I don't know if Richard did intentionally not, kind of got him sidetracked from telling a little bit more about, what actually happened in this movie.
I must be going fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Thought this was terrible. I laughed a lot. Alex coming out of the gate and being like, what is serious about Anchorman? And Richard being like, the love for Baxter. Like, and all I could think of, Baxter, bark twice if you're in Milwaukee. But anyway, I went with Alex. We didn't argue the
I thought it was best performance.
Richard,
I didn't realize it was best movie.
Richard, Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry.
We didn't argue the question. It was on screen in front of you the whole time.
I know.
And I swear to God. And
I apologize.
Richard.
Mute him.
And even then, they did still talk about the movies. I agree with Brian there. But Alex also was stuck on performance and character for a long time. It wasn't just Richard. It was Alex too. All I heard from Alex for the first 3.5, 4 minutes of the main round was all about the character. I actually thought both openings were good. I thought they talked about the movie. They had to mention the character because it's a Will Ferrell thing, but I thought it was great. Richard went on the here's why Ron Burgundy is the greatest, which I completely agree. He is God's gift to cinema and God's gift to humanity. But Alex went on that whole tirade about the character, but then he actually brought up and said word for word, like, we're not talking about the funniest Will Ferrell movie. Which is true. We were talking about the best movie, and I thought Alex gave me something substantial about Stranger Than Fiction, which, to be fair, I have not seen since it came out. so I don't remember much about it. But I
It's
thought
my favorite Will Ferrell movie, by the way.
I've heard it's great. I just haven't seen it in such a long time. But no, I had to go with Alex because he gave me something.
Good job, Alex.
Okay, we are gonna go to the final question. And Alex is up 2-1. He needs to hit this, or I'm sorry, Richard needs to hit this to send it to the bonus. Question is in the category of Star Trek, and the question is as follows: which Star Trek character is the best at their job on the Enterprise? Alex, you're kicking this off. You have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
The Enterprise is Starfleet's best and brightest, their most competent crew. That's the idea, anyway. They get into a lot of adventures, and it's like a TV show or something. Which of their many crews is the best one? I'm going to cut to the chase. It's Worf. He is the backbone of the next generation Enterprise crew. As tactical officer, the Enterprise is never destroyed, which can't say enough about. That's very important. As a Klingon warrior, he is the hammer and fist of the crew. He gives prudent advice. He is always playing backup on positions when he sometimes doesn't even work on the Enterprise. In the last two movies, he no longer works there. He just arrives and starts playing backup positions. He's promoted to his own assignment faster than any other crew member that I'm aware of in the movies. He is the all-purpose player, Worf, the absolute best crew member. And I'll yield the rest of the time.
Whoops, I should have brought myself in first. Okay, ending about 10 seconds early. We're going to move over to Richard. Richard, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
The best character at the job of the Enterprise is someone who takes the job seriously, someone who's always there 24/7 to make sure everything goes well, and that is Dr. Leonard McCoy. He is there. He is the ship's doctor. He has to take care of multiple people throughout the whole crew. He is there. He does his duty no matter what his fears are in our space, what his prejudices are in real life against people. He's there, he does his job, and he does his job the best he can, and he is the better at his job than Worf is. And I can see the rest of my time.
Okay. Worf versus Bones. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
You go first. I don't remember.
Bones is the funniest Doctor. I think the main problem I have with Bones is that a lot of people die on his watch. He's not that great at the whole doctoring bit. Chancellor Gorkon is right there. He has his hands deep inside of his his hands deep inside of his body. The guy just dies. The only reason that Spock wasn't killed is because Spock's anatomy is weird and different. He's the one person that I could think of that he's been able to medically help in a big way is when they go back in time to a lady that has dialysis, which is, excellent. I think ethically he's a great doctor, but realistically his body count is a little high in terms of doctors.
That you're saying because there was a lot of death count, a lot of people invading the ship. Who's involved with making sure no one enters the ship? Chief of Security, which is Worf. So many encounters, people have entered the ship, blown up the Enterprise multiple times in the movies.
Right.
Worf is in charge of that.
Worf would be in charge of that if he served on the Enterprise that Bones served on, and he never does. The one time that a character named Worf encounters Bones, it is the Worf that convicts Bones for the murder.
We're talking about the movies, not the TV show.
No,
talking about
this is all in the movies. The character, a character named Worf, convicts Bones on the count of murder against the Chancellor in legal
people
court.
have invaded Nemesis First Contact. People have invaded the ship. That was Worf's job. His Klingon side prevents him from having a clear mind because he's always about aggression. Bones literally brought back Kirk back to life into the darkness. He was dead. He found a way to bring back Kirk back to life. That's the best job to sustain life. Also, his job is on and off the ship. Worf's job is mainly, his whole thing is about him being chief of security on the ship. And people still on to this day, keeps invading the ships within the movies. He's not doing a great job. And as you said in Nemesis, he's no longer on the Enterprise. He's on Deep Space Nine. He's no longer with the Enterprise. That means if he was as good as the job as he would have been, Picard would have kept him on the ship. He did not.
Well, first of all, it's out of Picard's hands who gets promoted and who doesn't. Worf is quite good at his job, and that's why he is promoted to his own assignments, 2 separate assignments, actually, because he is Captain of the Defiant, and as well as he gets promoted to Deep Space Nine. I will push back.
He's not Captain, he's Commander of the Defiant.
Excuse me. Well, I said he serves on Deep Space Nine. I will push back on the idea that Bones brought Kirk back to life, but it was a complete and total accident. He was performing a random medical experience that just happened to work out at the time.
His doctorate in medical skills is not an accident. That's experience.
It absolutely was an accident that they had that particular creature with that particular guy's blood that they happened to mix up in the exact same moment that they needed to revive that one guy.
You can argue that any of Worf's actions were
trillion to 1. It is a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance. I will also push back on the idea that Worf, as chief of security, as tactical officer, people invade, and yet despite multiple invasions of the Enterprise is frequently boarded but never destroyed.
It got destroyed in the movies.
In Worf's tenure aboard the Enterprise is never destroyed across those 4 movies, even though he does not necessarily serve.
That is not true. It has been destroyed. I don't remember which Star Trek movie, but it had been destroyed in the movies.
If you say so. I don't remember that happening, but and if
that
you
was
cannot tell me, then I cannot confirm that. But I'll say this: Bones' job on and off of the field, I think he's a better psychiatrist for Kirk than he is a medical doctor aboard the Enterprise. I don't think that his experience, his counsel is that prudent. You said that Worf is, as a Klingon, his aggression is too much. He doesn't kill Picard for something that he would kill regular men over, because he has so much respect for Picard. So he's in complete control. Yes, he has anger, but that anger does not cloud his judgment like you suggest it does.
His doctorate is not only medical. Yes, he is a advocate and a priest and a counselor to Kirk. At the time, during the original Enterprise, there was no doctor counselor on the ship, so he had to do both parts. So yes, I think he is the best character for the job, because he's doing multiple roles. He's a counselor and confidant to Captain Kirk. He's also a medical doctor who backed away into the darkness, and in the Star Trek Beyond, he brought Spock, helped him heal himself on the ship.
On the ship, strike it from the record. We're going to start with Richard to close. Richard, you get 1 minute when you start talking.
Dr. McCoy is the best crewmate on the Enterprise, because he did his job, not only his medical job, but his counseling and confidant job to Captain Kirk, as he is in the rest of the department. He brought not only Kirk back from the dead, brought back to life from the dead, he also helped cure Spock from, to dying in Star Trek Beyond. Worf, I love Worf, but his aggression always never suited him better in the movies. His job was chief of security to protect the crewmates on the ship, but the ship constantly kept getting invaded over and over again in the movies. We're talking about who did the better job: a doctor bringing someone back to life or healing injuries, versus someone who's supposed to be in charge of the ship, make sure no one attacks the ship. It's Dr. McCoy. His job as a doctor, he healed more injuries than Worf did protecting the ship. I end this statement.
Okay. We're going to bring in Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Like I've said, Bones is fine. He is on the Enterprise for his role as doctor, but time and time again, the kind of danger that befalls the Enterprise just isn't the kind of damage that Bones can meaningfully prevent. He can save a woman on dialysis, but not the bleeding out Chancellor. Bones is too reactive. Worf is proactive. He fights the Borg on board the Defiant and the Enterprise in First Contact. Enterprise not destroyed. He leads the tactical retreat of the Bakuan insurrection and participates in battles in Nemesis with all successfully. Every crew member, of course, is important, but explosion in space caused way too much damage for either version of Bones to manage. Worf uses his skill set to keep the Enterprise in the sky and keeping the mission on track, whether it be advising, fighting, or as tactical officer.
Time. Oh, for the love of mercy and all things holy. Okay.
This is a fun fight, Alex. Good job. What are you listening to? Or are you just your headphones to listening in?
There's nothing.
Oh, okay.
I am going to say my answer. I'm going with Richard. I don't like it, but it's what I'm doing. Think Richard, and I say I don't like it because I like Worf more than Bones. I think, well, maybe TV Worf more than Bones, but that's not the point. I went with Richard because I think he gave me, in the instance of what Bones' job is, the success stories of Bones, what Bones has done. His takedowns against Worf were weak, but I didn't think that the takedowns of Bones were that great either. But I thought that Richard did a better job of lifting Bones up than Alex did lifting Worf up, in my opinion. I don't know these movies that well. I don't think the Enterprise ever gets destroyed in the Next Generation series.
It gets destroyed.
In Star Trek Generations, it explodes when the saucer section crashes.
But that's not in the movies.
That is in the movie.
That's the first movie.
Which, you said
movie.
Generations? Oh,
Generations.
I thought you said the Next Generation.
He didn't bring it up, so I didn't factor that in. But
I said it, there was a movie he got destroyed. I don't remember which movie it was, but I said it got destroyed.
Anyway.
Mark.
I know, I'm saying. Sorry. I don't have time to watch all the movies again.
Richard!
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's the only thing. I mean, listen, a peer review is always important. And I guess that's, what we're doing here today. I feel like I do agree. I'll just say I'm never good at building up. I did go with Alex on this one. I did kind of factor in a lot of kind of the attacks that were brought on Worf, and I feel like Alex was able to kind of skirt pretty much all of them. And I mean, there was even one, I can't remember exactly what the attack was, but it was where it was the attack on like Worf wasn't there to kind of prevent something happen on the Enterprise, and then Alex smartly goes like, well, like he wasn't there because he was promoted because he was good at his job. It was kind of one of those where we just kind of went in there. I think it just kind of turned the fight around, and I did feel like, Alex's attacks on McCoy, like, kind of hit more for me. Like, again, I'm not super in depth with these movies, but I do think, like, in a sense, like, I got the feeling that, Worf was better at like what he does, just from the sense of this argument.
Okay. So, Brian, you're deciding this one. Are we going to
our
bonus?
fourth split decision in a row?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say we're going to sudden death. I voted for Richard. For me, I think it just came down to, the fact that like the triple thing was a mistake and all. Yeah, but then I think that still he talked about how he's done a good job in doing his job as a doctor and healing people. So as far as his assigned job in the Enterprise, he does a good job. And he attacked Worf, basically saying that people are constantly getting on the Enterprise, and his whole thing is security, and And Alex defended and said, yes, he's participated in battles and things like that, but really just as far as who is doing their job better and like instead of security and keeping it secure, the Doctor was doing a better job.
All right, so that means we are going to the speed round. Here's how this is going to work. I have randomized whether this question is going to come from Fandom or Melee. Then I randomized the remaining categories that weren't drafted for the main round. That is where your question is going to come from. So I am going to reveal the question. I am then going to repeat the question a second time. Once I have repeated it, you can answer the question. Whoever answers the question first will be going first. You will each get 45 seconds, and then you will each get 30 seconds. Are there any questions from the players?
Yes, I do have a question. I've never done this before. Is there a time limit for what we can choose if someone else answers first? Do we have time to think?
Well, I mean, if you need, if it starts to get crazy long, I'll be like, Richard, come on. But
Okay.
I don't think you're gonna have that problem. And yeah, you can use Google, you can look shit up. Like, I don't care.
Got it. That
I'll
was
edit
just
around that. Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
Good luck, Alex.
Good luck.
All right. So the the side of Fanzone that was randomized was Fandom. The category was DC / Worlds of DC. And the question is, who is the best non-Joker DC Worlds of DC villain? So again, who is the best non-Joker DC Worlds of DC villain?
I'll say Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson.
Okay.
Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor.
All right. So we will take out the other judges. I'm going to stay in for this to give you guys your countdowns. So because Alex said his answer first, he's going to be going first. Alex chose Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson. Richard chose Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor. So, gentlemen, we will kick this off. Alex, you have 45 seconds when you start talking.
Batman, most commonly, and as it's portrayed in the Nolan trilogy, is a character that is trying to do good things by doing what is, morally bad, beating people up, taking the law into his own hands. The other side of that coin is Ra's al Ghul, the trainer, Batman's trainer, and those two in the Batman Begins presented an interesting dichotomy because Bruce Wayne, Batman, agrees with Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul agrees with Batman, but what they are trying to decide is who is correct, whose mode of action is actually the way that it should be done, and that makes for a really interesting dynamic.
Time. Richard, 45 seconds.
When it comes to an iconic, the best DC villain, no other than Gene Hackman. He is the Lex Luthor to Superman, the OG Lex Luthor to Superman, Christopher Reeves. He started this whole generation of comic book heroes. His adversity with him versus Superman, it collided with basically brought up everything, the DC, the MCU, the DCEU, everything, Marvel. If it wasn't for these two individuals, it may never have ended up into a TV show live action or to a TV animated action or to even what we got to today if this doesn't work. And it did work. Gene Hackman's the best DC villain that's not Joker.
Time. Alex, 30 seconds.
Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor is a comic inaccurate, overly hammy performance by a otherwise really considered very good actor. I think Gene Hackman took a swing, but the material that he is given is not the material. And the material that he is given, the material that he acts out is kind of on two completely different wavelengths. Counter that with Liam Neeson, who is actually playing more or less what Batman would be if he were an eco-terrorist, giving it a much more interesting dimension. They are on the same power scale.
Time. Richard, 30 seconds.
At this point in time, Gene Hackman's Superman, the only thing he had available at the time were comic books and the old Superman live-action movie. During Batman Begins, Liam Neeson's character was good, but he wasn't the villain at the time. Batman Begins' main villain was the Scarecrow. He was the majority of the movie till right at the end. His impact, more people revealed Ra's al Ghul as the animated series. People still think Gene Hackman is the best Lex Luthor, the best OG villain. There's no comparison.
Time. Okay. I'm going to bring in the judges. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, Brian, kick us off.
I'll keep it short and simple. I think that Richard made a real good pitch on why his is that he was the first. He was the original, villain that kind of ushered in the DC era. But I thought that Alex did a better as far as why his was the best.
Okay. Yeah, I think that these are both great picks. Two that I thought of at the forefront when writing the question. So I think the players did a good job taking their time and coming up with the right picks. But I agree with Brian. I went with Alex. I thought that Alex worried me in his 45 seconds because I thought he was wasting his time. Talking about he talked about Batman a lot, and you don't have a lot of time. Tell me about the evil stuff that Ra's al Ghul does. But I thought that once he came around, once I saw what he was going for with being like he's the anti-Batman, or like they have similar ideas, but where they split is big, and that's what caused him to be a great villain. That worked for me. I agree with Brian, though. I think that Richard, I get what Richard was going for on saying Gene Hackman was one of the first. He didn't have much to go off of, and so he kind of created this great performance all on his own. But I didn't hear much about what Lex Luthor in that performance does as a villain that makes him better than Ra's al Ghul. So that's why I went with Alex. Mark, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I concur with all the points brought up. Me too. First clean sweep of the match with Alex. I feel like Alex he just brought more examples on why Ra's al Ghul was a good villain and why he fits in the film that he's in. So that's kind of the main reason.
All right. Well, that means your winner is Alex Martinez. We are going to go to post-match interviews. We're going to start by talking to Richard. Richard, really great job today. I think, winning 2 out of 4, going to the speed round. You said you've never been to the speed round before. That surprises me. You've been around for a long time, and you've got a lot of wins on the record. So the fact that you haven't been to the speed round for is actually kind of impressive, and kind of makes me think that this was as evenly of a evenly matched fight as we thought it was going to be going into it. What are your thoughts coming out of it today?
I had never been to the speed round before, so I wasn't sure if we were going to get a second rebuttal. So I was holding off a lot more, but I should not have expected it. Alex did a tremendous job. He did a great pitch. If I had known there was just I don't know, maybe I misheard, but I was hoping for another rebuttal, but yeah, it happens. He did a fantastic job. This is a loss that I can be okay with because I fought my butt off. Alex fought his butt off, and hopefully I get to come back because I want to keep going back. I don't want to be retired. I've been losing a lot lately, so I'm hoping to keep coming back.
Richard, who do you want to play when you come back?
Anyone who doesn't pick Oscars.
I mean, that's fair. I think we can all agree with you on that one, Richard. Richard, I thought you played great today.
I could not. I would have watched both, but I couldn't. I don't have a job right now. I have an interview tomorrow. I could have a job, but I couldn't watch it.
Go watch something that you enjoy, Richard.
Yes, Alex, great job. Congrats on your win. I'm sad, but I'm happy. I did my butt up.
Richard, great job. We'll see you in the next one. Let's bring in the winner today, Alex Martinez. Alex, congrats on another win. You are now even at 2-2. Your thoughts coming out of this one?
Woo! I apologize for the whole Oscars thing. I lack melee strengths, and I did a podcast one time. It was a huge mistake. I hope you get the job, Richard. Let's get my boy Richard some checks. Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, you're gonna be playing another match. I'm actually very excited about this. I didn't know I was gonna be very excited about this, but I'm very excited about this. This is part of a title picture.
Okay.
You're going up against someone who found some success late last year, early this year, and has put himself in a spot where he can now be on the second tier here for you to play. Alex, in your next match, you're going to be playing Jack Pinchuk.
No. All right. Well, we did this one time before, and I think we ended up in sudden death. Come and get me, you bastard.
I'm gonna vote for you every time, Alex. I fucking hate that guy. But yeah, no, Alex, I'm looking for. Have you guys played in debate? Is that
we debated? Yeah, we debated. He gave me my last loss.
Oh wow, I don't remember that. But yeah, I guess that adds up actually, because that would have been the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that was when he was on that little run he did. Okay, that makes sense. But I mean, you got him again. Time for revenge. We can do this, Alex. Between you and me and Mark, we can, and maybe Brian, we can make that fucker lose. We can do it. I have faith. Alex, congrats on a great win today. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, man. Let's get final thoughts starting with Brian.
So that was a debate.
Yes, that was.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they're two guys that were kind of scrambling to kind of get out of that losing side. Now Alex is going to have going to be out of the negative record, so he can move forward. But like you said, Richard's been around a long time, so he'll bounce back. I'm sure we'll see him again in the future. But he was all right.
Mark, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about we just conspired in an on-screen collusion against our fellow Canadian. But yeah, I mean, there were some great moments here that I think we will remember for throughout this year. And I think especially Alex, they battled hard. Both people also won their opponent's points throughout this entire match. It's always fun when that happens.
That's true. I didn't think about that, but that is true. Good point, Mark. That's why I keep you around. You say things that I don't think of. Guys, thank you for watching this match. Thank you to Brian and Mark for judging. Thank you to Richard and Alex for playing. I've been Tim. We got more matches on the horizon. Now that this set of matches is over, coming up, Tyler Birch is going up against Robert Kastner. And like I said, Alex is going to play that douche, Jack Pinchuk. I look forward to it. We'll see you soon with those matches. Bye-bye.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.